There comes a moment when you've exhausted all your options while simultaneously coming across a product that reinvents your notion about what an honest and high-quality company looks like. The Healing Rose was the catalyst to that very moment for me. The Healing Rose Company is a female-owned Massachusetts CBD company based out of Newburyport that prides themselves in using only the best USDA-certified organically sourced ingredients for their vast line of therapeutic products. Their line stretches from lip balms, tinctures, skin balms, roll-on oils, and bath products. Their transparency places them above the rest with third-party tested results showcasing their intolerance to toxic pesticides, solvents, metals, and harmful elements. They provide full-spectrum CBD in many of their products, excluding their tinctures, which carry a broad spectrum profile, ideal for not having to worry about any low-level THC, which is common for many CBD products. That one's my favorite, and it's good on the palate. Full spectrum means that they extract from the hemp plant an array of different therapeutic cannabinoids along with CBD and their profile terpenes. The combination results in a greater outcome of healing and relaxation for any individual's needs. Whether you are an athlete looking for any recovery advantage, a patient in need of some relief to remind yourself that you are still a warrior, or someone who sees the frontiers of life with a little reserve and want to calm the mental storms that keep you from personally exploring, the Healing Rose CBD Company is here for your full body and mind optimization. Please visit thehealingroseco.com to explore their diverse line of products and support one of New England's best rising stars in an industry where ethics are fundamental, and a company like this will only be found sitting at the throne of it all. Use the code SAGAS, S-A-G-A-S, for 10% off your purchase. Again, visit thehealingroseco.com and use the promo code SAGAS at checkout for 10% off your purchase. To the many martial artists, entrepreneurs, dreamers, and thinkers, how often, for your own sake, would you love a symbolic reminder of your mentality and the perfect dichotomy to match? Murder Nerd is an independent clothing apparel line that represents the sharp, relentless focus towards personal growth and athletics. It embodies the vitality of their creative owners and the network of people who run on the same frequency. Why not elevate your frequency in comfort and style? Visit www.murdernerdsfitness.com for their personal line of shirt and hat wear. Enter the promo code SAGAS, S-A-G-A-S, for 10% off your purchase. Again, visit murdernerdfitness.com and enter the promo code SAGAS for 10% off your purchase. All right, here we go, sitting and sweating. Let's start this thing. So we're going to get right into this. This one, okay, here we go. Start. This is going to be the first, this is a branching point for the podcast, because what I want to do that I had planned on doing a while ago, but I think I'm ready to try this, is we're going to, I'm going to make kind of a, whatever you want to call it, like a subsection of podcasts here, and maybe release maybe one a month. And it'll kind of be under the name of like No Stone Unturned series, where I want to go through a lot of the information that I've collected in the last couple of years, whether it's through some of the physical literature that I've printed and kept on all my files, or through a lot of just data that I've collected on my phone and everything. Science literature, a lot of different things, but it's going to very much be within the scope of autoimmune and chronic pain, really, just because I have quite a bit of experience in doing a lot of these, obviously with our circumstance and understanding them. And I think even if some of these really didn't pan out and work for us because of the different source that maybe this all kind of came from, that doesn't mean that it's not going to be helpful in having another option to look into. And these are just my experiences. This isn't me telling anybody to go and do anything. If you're interested in whatever comes up in these, obviously bring them up to whoever you see for your chronic pain, and look into this obviously for yourself. So this first one, I decided to do this because in reality, I think this is a little bit of the golden goose for us in this family. And I'm going to try to put it out into the universe and hope that, it doesn't kind of backfire now that I'm going to praise this thing. But, that's yet again just more negative mental conditioning over a long period of disappointment, right? That's what happens. You just kind of think like, well, this won't work and that won't work and this won't work. You just get conditioned into not having any faith into these moments. But this one has actually panned out. And even if it's for a little while, that's okay. And I'll kind of explain why. But I want to get this out there now and then kind of move backwards between other different ideas, theories, and also protocols and whatever, even certain medications. We really didn't do any meds here, but there's some ideas that could kind of pop up. So what I want to do is bring up ketamine. So ketamine is, when you first hear ketamine, you think of, I assume that a lot of people would think of the street drug, right? And to be honest, between you and me, when I was younger, I tried ketamine. I probably shouldn't have, but I tried it in its simplest form. It was a powder. I took it in. I felt intoxicated, like I had like 8 beers in me for a good 45 minutes. And that was it. It wasn't anything enlightening or weird or anything like that. You just kind of felt drunk, really. So you think of it like that. You think of it as a street drug. But then what it's also used for, which it's been out, I think, since like the 50s or so, it's an anesthetic. You use it for operations. It helps with regulating your blood pressure and your heartbeat, depending on your situation when you're coming out of surgery. And so what I've seen in the last, I'd say in the last 5 to maybe 7 years or so, what popularized this was depression. People use ketamine for depression at lower doses. You do it as an infusion. And it helps quite a bit, but it gives you an experience. Ketamine is actually very hallucinogenic. Some people would classify it as a psychedelic. Obviously, it's in its form, it's not very natural like you would kind of look at other things, but, really what is other than a select few things, other than ayahuasca or like maybe ibogaine, psilocybin, some of the secretions from like toads, all those different things. But some aren't, like LSD and all that, and this is one of them. But it can give you very much an experience that is very eye-opening and mind-opening and heart-opening, which is really a big piece of the mechanism as to why it helps with people with huge depression and anxiety, because it allows you to kind of like step out of your body and step out of your situation in that moment, and it kind of conditions a way of viewing your problems. But then also there's a chemical reaction going on too that really does help, and I'll get into that. So they've used ketamine for anxiety and depression, and a lot of these behavior and just these clinics that kind of work with people with these problems. But then they started intertwining it into pain and pain clinics. And we ended up looking into this, and it is crazy how many modalities and how many different things you do have to make yourself go through to eventually get to something, right? And that's why in all situations you try to you try to emphasize to yourself the idea of just like never giving up, right? Because you don't know what's around the corner. You don't know what is about to kind of be put on your lap. You don't know when your moment is, right? If your moment is not now, when is your moment? Because it could be next. And so I look into this. I find one that's in Boston, I think it's in Mass General. And then another clinic that is in New Hampshire. It's in Salem, New Hampshire. It's called New England Ketamine. So we get a whole consult, and the person that runs this facility is a nurses. Oh man, I get so mixed up with this. So it's the person who runs the patient while they're after the anesthesiologist has actually done the initial work, right? Started the infusion, done the doses, all that stuff. But then this person now monitors them through their surgery, and then when they get out of it. And New England Ketamine is run by one of these guys. I won't give the last name, but his name is Casey. Incredible person. That one, I could dedicate like a handful of podcasts just describing this guy's life. The origin story to this man is unbelievable, and you could barely write it in a book into how he has come up with taking this path of starting his own infusion clinics with ketamine. It's unbelievable. It's almost archetypal. Like, I'm fascinated by this guy. So we I'm gonna get the name of this goddamn position by the time I'm done with this. So we have a consult with them, and he talks to my wife, and he's very, very, very good, very conservative, goes over all her ailments. They all seem familiar, but not all together, right? He's never seen somebody that has all of these things kind of at once. And he starts to kind of break down her case and all that, and then he eventually he calls and says that she is eligible to get it done. He feels that it actually could help her. So we make our appointments and we do the whole schedule. We rearrange our schedules, because when you do a pain protocol for ketamine, it varies a little bit because people vary, and you want to be safe in kind of introducing people with this. And I like that idea because, in a lot of healthcare and in medicine, it's very much, here's one thing, let's throw it to everyone, and whatever doesn't stick, too bad, where you can individualize healthcare a little more, but that requires time. And most physicians don't have time. It sounds fucking stupid, but they just don't. So the initial infusions is 6 infusions. What can vary is kind of the time in between them. You can either do 1 every day for 6 days in a row. You can do 3 and then 3 one week, 3 the next week. And it's kind of a loading dose. So what we ended up doing, just because we all knew and agreed that my wife was sensitive, we agreed that we would start really low. So we go up to the clinic, and I'm going to be very straightforward with this. We walk in, and it's this beautiful little kind of like very spa looking place. And who ends up meeting us is Mia, their little brown chihuahua. And it's like she was like a spirit animal. You know, she was so cute and kind and just wanted to play, and she would greet you every time you came to the door. And she was my companion really through this whole experience. She was cool because through these infusions I'd sit in the waiting room or whatever, or I would kind of go around Salem and just kind of see what I needed and what I wanted to look at and come back. And she was just always there, and she'd always sit next to you, and she'd always check in on the patient. She'd always check in on my wife. It was very neat, just a very neat experience with that. You know, she added so much warmth and security and a uniqueness to the experience. So we get there, and, you know, we start talking to Casey, and, you know, his personality and his character starts to kind of unfold as we talk to him and we meet him. And, you know, we prep her for her first infusion. And in the first infusion, it's a low dose. I'd say it was, off the top of my head, I think it was about 75, I'm going to say milligrams. I could be wrong with this. But you do 75 milligrams. You span it out in between 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours. And you do some pre-meds, which are mostly just for like possible nausea. And some post-meds, which usually have to do with the side effects afterwards, which is just kind of a little bit of a fatigue, nausea. I forget the clinical term for it, but you feel dizzy for quite a while afterwards, pretty much the whole day after. So you take some of these post-meds to mitigate that, and it's in the form of an infusion at the end of that infusion. I think it's called propofol. So she does the 75 milligrams, and, you know, I cross my fingers. I hope everything's okay. She goes in, and keep in mind, we obviously did tons of research on this, and one of the driving things to doing ketamine was there is very much a, you know, and I know it's a buzzword, but there's a spiritual disassociation that happens with a lot of doses, and especially at a low dose. And at a low dose, you can experience this disassociation, and it can be quite heavy. But the literature says that when you allow a patient to go through the psychosocial spiritual experience, the outcomes of what they're looking for are actually much higher, whether it's depression or pain. You know, it works on the body and the mind too at the same time. So she does her first infusion, and I wait, and it's about a good hour and a half, and she comes out of the infusion, and I hear her kind of like a little bit of like a hoot and holler kind of thing, like a surprise little yell. And that's her coming out of the experience. And at some point, I'm going to see if I can get her to kind of explain her own experience, because I will never do it justice. But from what I gather, it is a very out-of-body experience. It's heavy colors. It's traveling through space. It is not feeling your body at all. And you're very still, you know. She had eyewear on. You know, she was in a nice recliner, one of the clinic's rooms, while Casey was monitoring her the whole time. And but colors and movement, and, you know, one of the big things that she described is that you're so disassociated from just even your own identity that you forget why you're even doing the infusion. She said, like, it was intriguing and amazing that she forgot why she was even doing it, because that meant that she forgot that she was even in pain, that she had any issue with herself. And she said that was such a huge part itself, because you're always in that state of mind. You're always being hijacked by that thought because of the sensations, right? And then to be totally separate from that, it's really, I can imagine that it feels like a reset, right? You feel like you're dreaming. You're like, wait, I don't have this anymore? Why am I even here? What is pain? I have pain? So just very out of body experience. So we get done with that first one. We come home. I take care of her for the rest of the day. Her schedule was 3 infusions in a row. Wait a week, we do 2. Wait another week, we do 2 more. So we actually ended up doing 7 infusions. And every time you'd go up a little bit. But as we go up, you use more propofol in the beginning, because as you go up in dosages, in the dose, you start to reach different levels of the, I'm going to call it the psychedelic experience, because there are different levels to it, and they actually are classified. And if you're not ready for it, it can be very scary, but like most of these experiences, very beneficial. It's scary because you're losing the most control that you can have, so that you can reset the mind so that it escapes this kind of locked box of trauma. But it's scary because we always want control. We want control of our mind and our bodies. So the higher doses you go, the more you start to flirt with that realm. But the propofol allows for kind of an amnesia experience where you can get the high dose without the radical experience, and you come out of it feeling like you've been there, but you're getting the effects of the medication, which is a numbing sensation right when you get out of it. She kept saying, like, I feel like a magnet, whatever that means, just radiating numbness, really. And so she goes to the infusions, and we continue to talk and get to know Casey and his girlfriend, who also runs the clinic. And God, one of these days I really do want to interview him. That would be my greatest person I could really ever show to people and have them listen to his story, because he is an unbelievable person. Unbelievable. Such high functioning, just because of just his ability to learn what he learned. This is a master's degree with a lot of post education, and then very much deep into the scope of what he's doing, which is just ketamine. And like I said, just his origin story and all of it is unbelievable. He taught us so much. And what one of his goals was to get my wife to get off of it, because she doesn't take any pills. You can't even, it's hard to believe that with everything, but she doesn't take any because she doesn't like them. But one of the goals was to get her off of one pain pill that she's been taking because of another weekly infusion that she's been getting for about a year. And I'll go over that in another one of these. And, he was the first to tell us that pain pills can actually rewire the circuitry. Unfortunately, where you take them long enough, you'll start to feel more pain. And then never mind the side effects from just that specific pill, which was for her kind of like a sleep apnea. Like she just couldn't sleep very well. No, not apnea, insomnia. And I would say after the first 3 days, because there's a lot of prep work going into it, and then things that we should be careful of afterwards when it comes to other meds that you take. Because when you're going there, you're at the end of your rope, right? You're either super depressed or you're in a ton of pain, so you're already carrying in a lot of different medications that are carrying you. So we do the 3 infusions, and after that first 3, we decided, okay, let's try not to take that one pain med. And not even the day after, she slept better first time in 6 months that she slept all the way through the night and didn't take that pain med. And as we waited that week, the trend kept going. No more pain meds, better sleep, better sleep. It was like unbelievable. The pain was still there, but the mood was different because of the insane experience. But also, it got her to a point where she could stop taking that pain med, and the pain med was fucking up her sleep. And when you have pain issues, sleep is your greatest recovery tool. So if that gets out of whack, you're just in a horrible cycle. So that in itself was just worth the experience, you know? So, you know, that was a huge part. And then we finally got to the end of the infusion cycle, and you know, there's a whole protocol on when you're done with the cycle, you can get ketamine lozenges, you can get ketamine sprays and things like that. We opted into just getting like a cream for her feet, and then maybe some of the lozenges, which we haven't really used the lozenges too much because they can, you know, she's sensitive, so she can feel a little out of whack with them, but luckily she doesn't need them. So, you know, we get, I'd say, a month out of the infusions, and the ear, the hyperacusis, which is that really heavy pain that you feel from certain frequencies, low frequencies, and the eye pain, the fatigue, the burning, the piercing, when looking at screens or driving or doing anything with light too, it's all come down. It's all come down significantly. So if she was flirting between a 6 and a 7 pain every day, it's dropped down to 2. And there are days when we'll go and do something and she'll say she doesn't feel anything at all. And it's almost hard to believe, right? That cynical part in my brain still says, like, really? Are you sure? And is this going to last? Like, what is this, you know? But I'm learning to just accept it and to know that, all right, this is really happening. Because what makes me comfortable also with this is that when you're done with the protocol, you can do boosters, right? So you give it the certain amount of time that you need until you go back for one infusion, right? To then reset what your loading dose did for you. And that could be a month, that could be 3 weeks, that could be 2 months, that could be 3 months, it could be longer, who knows? But knowing that there's at least a month time under her belt where she feels normal, where her eyes, she's able to watch 20 minutes of TV. We literally watched 2 days ago the first episode of Stranger Things from season 3. Oh shit. And that's a big deal, man, because all this stuff happened at a point where this was like a year and a half ago. It was a year and a half ago of just straight no television, none of those simple joys, you know? And that's such a big deal. That was a celebration moment, you know? So, you know, we're still conservative with it. So we do the 20 minutes here and there and stuff like that. But my God, it's like being able to just tangibly grab an echo of what you were and say, oh, you're coming back to me, you know? So the whole idea, I gotta break this down quick. So because of this, you know, I'm sure we're gonna book a booster in maybe a couple weeks or so, and the whole idea of this is to really, ketamine has many functions, and some of them actually still are not really understood, even when it comes to breaking some of this PTSD and depression in a lot of these severe cases. But one of the big places that it works on is something called an NMDA receptor. That NMDA receptor is your communicator for a lot of your systems. It's in your nervous system. And what travels through that receptor is something called glutamine. Glutamine is a neurotransmitter that we make. It's your most excitatory transmitter. When that goes out of whack, that's a part of depression. That's a part of anxiety. That's also a part of pain when you make too much of it. So now you have too much of this neurotransmitter going through all of your peripheral systems in your nervous system, through these channels, through these receptors. The ketamine finds a way to kind of modulate these receptors in like over 20 ways. One of the big ones being that it actually breaks the cycle and helps to regulate that glutamate transport reaction, where you slow down the flow, get it to a more regular place, so then the system gets closer to homeostasis. You don't have that overflow, which then results in less pain or whatever that symptom is. Because, glutamate is known to be a big factor in hyperacusis. It's going to be a big factor in the autopsy reports of breaking down different brain regions and functions with people with fibromyalgia. A lot of it is glutamate. How that turns on initially is something huge to explore, but the ketamine has an ability to actually break down this cycle to the point where one of the worst pain issues that people have is something called chronic regional pain syndrome, CRPS, where you just want to cut your limbs off because of how much pain you have. And that diagnosis is, I think, what got ketamine a little further into the mainstream, because that was so difficult to break. And when they finally started using infusions in the early ages for this, people got relief literally on their way out of the clinic. They started feeling their hands again. Unbelievable, because that is one of the hardest things to break. So, that gives me clues to the idea that yes, this is obviously a nervous system issue, but that these NMDA receptors have a huge play in at least the sensory part of her system, like her eyes and her ears, and that's huge. And then never mind the mood part of it. It's I'm sure it's both, but it's like if it helps her mood, obviously you don't know if it's the ketamine or if it's I have less pain, so then I'm living my life. I'm in a better mood. So this was huge. This was a huge breakthrough. And, the nervous system is it's plastic, which means like, people talk about the brain being neuroplastic, right? That means the ability to learn, the ability to change, the ability to rewire a habit. Your nervous system is like that too. And I think that breaking the cycle retrains and conditions a nervous system to be able to get back into the initial groove and functioning of the way that it was and get farther away from the initial like inhibitory trauma that's happened to the system through whatever means that is. And that's connected to like epigenetics and and it's connected to multiple things. And one quick thing that I wanted to bring up was just this little paragraph here, because my issue is like we talk about idiopathic things and we try to treat things like there is a perfect source to everything, right? It's like we know what diabetes type 2 comes from, right? Too many carbs and not paying attention to what you eat. That's what that is, along with like lipid dysfunctions, all that stuff. And some things are genetic, but some things when you don't know what they are, there's a psychological part to it that we don't look at. And that doesn't. And what I'm not saying, what I'm saying is that doesn't mean that it's just in your head, right? Because that's the worst thing somebody could say to somebody. But what it is, it's I don't know how else to describe it. It's in your spirit. And what I mean by that is like, what are the personality types that end up getting some of these central nervous system dysfunctions, right? Which perpetuates central sensitization. That's what the ketamine breaks. Central sensitization. That is the big word for this. It's a wind-up phenomenon where you just get into a cycle of excitatory signals that just do not calm down, and they just go over and over and over again. And give you the signal of pain when there's nothing there. There is no pain. But this thing that says, this is on Medscape, it says several personality styles among patients with fibromyalgia, and I use this as an umbrella term for a lot of different things because a lot fall underneath this. With fibromyalgia are encountered in clinical practice. Most common is a perfectionism, compulsiveness personality, characterized by a rigid belief system in the need to be perfect, high underlying anxiety, and unawareness of feelings and emotions. This really just cements the idea of trauma, right? Trauma and just neglect, and the idea that what have we not processed at an early age, and now it has run amok through a system in a body that specifically is, like, we'll call it epigenetically vulnerable, right? We're not all built exactly the same. You might be vulnerable to a certain amount of stimulus that will then turn on something in you. And it can be perpetuated and initiated by emotions or lack of emotions. And then whatever else follows, and another thing that I do want to explore is, like, this is why these type of central nervous system conditions, they dominate a lot of the female gender. I don't know a lot of people that are a male that have fibromyalgia or anything like this. It's not that they don't exist, they obviously exist, but it's so dominant in females. And, I'm curious as to that, because everybody has the ability to, like, process things differently. But, whether you're a boy or a girl, the lack of ability to be able to process your environment at an early age, and then never mind compound that with actual trauma or actual just bad influence, like, you don't know what you're about to carry into your adulthood. And so that's a big one to explore, because we gotta get rid of this whole idiopathic label. That's terrifying to people. That is literally just saying we don't know what's wrong with you, so we'll just keep you in a cycle of medications. That's bullshit. And that really just comes down to effort and time from the physician. And it's not that they don't want to. They're just ball and chain to a certain system that doesn't really allocate for that. Like exploration in an individual, especially personality and psyche, right? They'll just send you off to a specialist. Go see a therapist, right? Well, that's a piece of it. That's not all of it, right? It's not gonna do everything. But, the idea of ketamine, the idea of, exposure therapy, that's a whole nother thing. It's these modalities, these therapies, these are huge for central sensitization and nervous system problems that, like, the genesis of these things can absolutely come from a lot of these external circumstances, right? It's not taking in too much of one thing or another, it's like taking on too much of something and having it rewire your mind, which then influences your nervous system, the fight or flight, all of these things. So, this is what I wanted to do with the podcast. I just wanted to try to break down this huge therapy that has that's been so good for us. And I hope it doesn't kind of backpedal in the coming days, but I don't think it will. And even if it does, I know that the option is there to use and do. So I'm very grateful for that. And that it also kind of unlocked more doors for me to explore about the mechanisms of what actually might be going on with this central nervous system disorder. So I'm incredibly grateful for it. And if anybody wants to reach out to me to get the name of the clinic and where we went and more on this experience, please just reach out to me. And I will put a couple links in there to his actual website at some point. There is no affiliation to him. I am just indebted to this man and his team of his dog and his wonderful girlfriend. He's amazing, and I will praise him forever. And I need to tell his story somehow. A narcissist. God damn it. I'm going to get this. Narcissus. Good googly moogly. This isn't gonna happen. Narcissus. God damn you, Harry. Either way, ketamine is the golden goose right now. So, I hope this was informative. I know it's not going to be for everybody, but this sub-series that I want to do is very specific towards getting the information out that I have that has worked for a lot of people and maybe not for us, but it also could be a resource for people that have chronic pain or chronic issues that really are so preoccupied with that shitty fucking circumstance that they don't actually have the time to look into these things and see how these things connect. Because if it was just my wife dealing with this, I don't know if she would have even found ketamine. I don't know. Because I've pulled my hair out constantly looking at literature all over the place. And I just want to create my own little hub for people to be able to just get a 20-minute listen and look into something that might actually give themselves some hope, you know? And there is no pseudoscience here. There's nothing. This is all going to be very real medical journal, medically published, physician prescribed, and just legit practices. And I will put up all the literature as these podcasts come out, so that people can kind of relay them or take them themselves. So, all right, guys, thank you very much.